Plenty of goals and a big cup set. The round of 16 in the Australia Cup was once again a very entertaining round of knockout football. Here's the full recap. First of all, let's jump into the scorelines that we saw across the past week. In the round of 16, Newcastle Jets losing out 3-4 to Macarthur FC. A big scoreline there. A game played up in Maitland. South Melbourne defeating Olympic FC 3-2. Match day 2 saw Lions FC host Western Sydney Wanderers. The Wanderers too good on that occasion. 4-0. 1-0 to Hume City over FC Melb and Srbija. Olympic Kingsway hosted Adelaide, but they lost out. Adelaide winning 3-2. And then match day 3, Melbourne victory was too strong for NWS Spirit. 4-0. 3-2. Moreton City Excelsior defeating Perth Glory. A-League opposition there. A big cup set. And then lastly, Oakleigh Cannons and Heidelberg United went to a penalty shootout. The Cannons coming out on top in that one. Some really interesting matchups and a lot of fascinating talking points. And it set up some really interesting quarterfinals, which we will discuss towards the end of the video. First of all, that first matchup that we saw on Sunday afternoon. Newcastle Jets 3, Macarthur FC 4. A fascinating game because the first half, Jets go in 2-0. They scored 2 goals through Costa Grozos and Mark Natta. Second half was a completely different story. Macarthur scoring through Valerie Man a couple times. Marin Jakalic grabbed a couple goals. Thomas Aquilina grabbed one in that second half. But the Bulls just ran away with it in the second half there. I was impressed with Newcastle Jets and the way they played in that first half. It was interesting looking at their lineup, and they had Mark Natta playing in a defensive midfield role alongside Costa Grozos, a position that we haven't seen him play too much. And it worked out well for him. He scored a fantastic goal, probably the best goal that he's ever scored in his career. Hasn't scored many goals, Mark Natta. Delightful strike from long range. But Macarthur FC really switched on in that second half. I mean, Valerie Germain wasting no time getting himself on the score sheet, grabbing 2 goals within the space of 6 minutes. And then Marin Jakalic, a really interesting signing for the Bulls, was at Melbourne City last season. Played a lot of football at City. Didn't quite get the goals and assists that he was hoping for. 2 fantastic goals here for the Bulls. That first one, just a phenomenal long-range strike. Top bins from Marin Jakalic, a player who I think could be set for a real big season at Macarthur FC, playing in a wide role. Both teams obviously need to tighten things up defensively heading into the A-League season, but the Bulls running away with it in the end 4-3. What a result. Next up, South Melbourne 3, Olympic FC 2. This game took quite a while to complete. There were unfortunately some pretty hectic storms in Melbourne during this game, so there was a pretty lengthy stoppage towards the end of the first half. So many hours until the game was finally completed. An incredible goal as well, a long-range strike from a free kick. South Melbourne, just a fantastic effort, which was certainly the highlight of this game. But really dramatic. I mean, the late goals that we saw, South Melbourne had to win it in extra time at the end. A fantastic, all NPL matchup. You got South Melbourne, the top team from NPL Victoria, Olympic FC, a team who we're familiar with in the Australia Cup finals from NPL Queensland. A really entertaining matchup there as well. Western Sydney Wanderers got a big 4-0 wins over Lions FC. And this was a game, it was interesting. I mean, despite the scoreline, I thought Lions really tested Western Sydney. They did have a lot of chances. Looking at the stats from Google, I mean, Wanderers racking up 15 shots total. Lions managed 12 shots, and possession was pretty even as well. They certainly did have their opportunities, the home side, in this match, but I think the quality in front of goal really showed here for Wanderers. And you look at the 4 different goal scorers, I think that'll be the pleasing thing for new Wanderers coach Alan Stadjic. A good mix of sort of experience and youth there in the goal scorers. You've got someone like Marcus Anderson, an experienced striker who is hoping for a bigger and better season this year in the A-League of Western Sydney Wanderers. And again, Zach Sapsford, he was giving that starting role ahead of Anderson, so potentially a big season coming up for young Zach Sapsford there at Western Sydney Wanderers. Next up, Hume City 1, FC Melbourne Srbija 0. A really narrow one in the end. It was an incredible story from the round of 32, seeing FC Melbourne Srbija, this team from the 3rd tier Victorian football, knocking out Modbury Jets from NPL South Australia. That was a big story. And they did so well to push Hume City all the way here. And it was an incredible goal, direct from the corner, that Hume City scored to get them through in the end. But a narrow one. And it's going to be really fascinating to see how Hume City come up against South Melbourne in the quarterfinals, and all Victorian clash once again in the Australia Cup in the quarterfinals coming up. Olympic Kingsway hosted Adelaide United. The Reds 3-2. A little bit nervy for Adelaide. It's the same scoreline that we saw in the round of 32 match when they defeated Blacktown City in extra time. Extra time was not required in this game. You look at the stats, quite fascinating. The Reds, 11 shots, just 4 of those on target. Olympic Kingsway actually managing more shots, 12 with 5 on target as well. The Reds, though, did certainly boss possession. And again, the Reds, you still feel like, need to make some signings, especially defensively, just to shore things up. Isaias has been playing a defensive role, but we know that he's more comfortable as a midfield player. The Reds have a really fascinating test coming up against Western Sydney in the quarterfinals. That'll certainly be one to watch. Two A-League heavyweights coming together there. Melbourne victory 4, NWS Spirit 0. I mean, they were just too strong in the end. And I think if we're talking about teams who could potentially be favourites to win this competition, Melbourne victory are looking really strong. They won it 3 years ago in 2021. You look at the stats here, 12 shots for victory, 10 of those on target. It's a fantastic accuracy there in terms of shots for Melbourne victory. 10 out of 12 shots on target. Spirit just managing 6 shots, and again, possession was certainly favouring Melbourne victory. Ryan Teague with a fantastic strike. Nishan Velupillay had a fantastic game, scoring a brace. And Nikos Vergos as well, who made his starting debut in this match for Melbourne victory. He scored after a delightful move, another fantastic ball across the box from Nishan Velupillay to set it up as well. Vergos, really interesting to see what's happening there at Melb victory in terms of the striking department, because Bruno Fornaroli, I mean, he was on the bench for this game. He did come onto the pitch in that second half, but Vergos looks like he's going to be that new starting number 9 for Patrick Kisnorbo, which is quite fascinating. You got Bruno Fornaroli, who could easily start at a number of A-League clubs. We know the experience that he has. He was scoring goals for fun last season for Melbourne victory, but is he going to be relegated to just a place on the bench for most of this season? You got someone like Jing Reese, who provides another option as a forward as well. So really interesting to see what's going to happen in terms of who starts the striker for this season for Melbourne victory. But Nikos Vergos, great start to his life at Melbourne victory, scoring here in the Australia Cup. An easy 4-0 win in the end for Melbourne victory, who go through to take on Moreton City Excelsior, who grabbed an incredible 3-2 win against Perth Glory. This game had it all. Perth Glory up 2-0 within 10 minutes. 2 shocking defensive errors from Moreton City Excelsior. Just really, really poor marking. Zach Lizalewski, Jacob Muir, the 2 defenders up for the set pieces, scoring for Glory. But soon after, I mean, it was really impressive the way Moreton City Excelsior, despite conceding those 2 early goals, you often see teams get so deflated after conceding a couple early goals. But Marquez Walters grabbing one back for Moreton City Excelsior in the 14th minute, and then 31st minute, Benjamin Holiday scoring a fantastic goal. And then the drama didn't end there in the first half. 42nd minute, Adam Bagaria, who made his first start here in this game for Perth Glory, sent off a second yellow. First yellow, I agree with. Second yellow, I just feel it's a bit harsh. You look at the angle that the referee was at, and you can probably see why the referee maybe thought it looked worse than it did. But I think looking at the replay, yes, it was late, but the contact wasn't all that heavy. There didn't appear to be any studs involved. It looked like a pretty harsh yellow card in my opinion, and it certainly affected things from there on out for Perth Glory. They were really struggling to create opportunities in that second half. Moreton City Excelsior were able to control much of the possession in that second half. The home team managed to rack up 14 shots, 5 on target. Glory just 9 shots, 7 on target. They were pushing, and it came in the 85th minute. Joseph Scott with the goal to send Moreton City Excelsior through. Lastly, we had Oakleigh Cannons, Heidelberg United, 1-1 in the end. A real stalemate, this one. And you look at the stats, really even all around. It was penalty shootouts in the end that separated the sides 4-1. Heidelberg, incredibly, 2 of their penalty shots smashed against the crossbar, which lost it in the end for them. Oakleigh Cannons going through. This has been an incredible year already for Oakleigh Cannons. They've finished 3rd in the NPL Victoria, defeating Sydney FC in the round of 32, getting through against NPL Victoria rivals Heidelberg United here as well. And they'll be hosting Macarthur FC and really will be backing themselves against the Bulls. And it's a rematch of the semi-final that we saw in 2022. Of course, they will want to get revenge here because obviously the Bulls knocked them out in that semi-final match. Some incredible quarterfinals coming up as well. We've got Oakleigh Cannons Macarthur, as we just mentioned. Hume City taking on South Melbourne, so another all-Victorian matchup there will be one to watch. Adelaide United, Western Sydney Wanderers, Reds hosting that one will be a really, really fascinating matchup because you look at the way that Wanderers are playing at the moment, scoring goals for fun, coming up against an Adelaide side who may be still figuring things out defensively. early stages, but I think I'd probably tip Wanderers in that one. And then Moreton City Excelsior hosting Melbourne Victory. I think Victory will be heavily favoured in that one. But look, based off what we saw from Moreton City Excelsior in that Perth Glory game, they will be backing themselves to get a big result here against Melbourne Victory. That would be a huge cup set if Moreton Excelsior were to get the job done. And I love that we can see the path all the way through to the finals. Some really fascinating matchups coming up potentially in the semi-finals. And then, I mean, who knows? We could even get like a South Melbourne Victory Australia Cup final, which would be crazy as well. So some really, really fascinating pathways remaining in the Australia Cup. What were your main takeaways from the round of 16 in the Australia Cup? Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Make sure to hit the like button. My name's Lockie. This is Coast Football, and I'll see you in the next one.